First things first, before we get started, I want to make something very clear that I am not here to say that I don't like Zack Snyder and that I don't like Zack Snyder movies and that Zack Snyder's movies are terrible. But at the same time, I really have no tolerance for this idea that James Gunn is also terrible. To me, I don't care, you know? A good movie's a good movie. And I'm at work and we're all listening to 70s music in the back, and a lot of the songs were from the Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 soundtracks. And the reason why those songs are so popular is due to the success of the Guardians movies, which James Gunn directed. I'm a big fan of Lollipop Chainsaw, which James Gunn was heavily involved in. I'm a big fan of the Scooby-Doo movies that he directed. I'm a big fan of Super, a great little movie he did. And I think Peacemaker is one of my favorite superhero TV shows of all time. I loved every second of it, and I think John Cena nailed it. But again, it was another heavily James Gunn inspired little TV show that was a sequel to his movie The Suicide Squad, which I also really liked. And I felt like The Suicide Squad, a lot of people will say stuff like they don't want to watch a Marvel movie. If they want to watch a Marvel movie, then they'll go watch Guardians of the Galaxy or some other Marvel movie. But what you have to understand about James Gunn is that he's not really making movies in the generic Marvel movie formula. It's unfair. It's really uncharacteristic. It's a bad job to describe the Guardians movies and the Suicide Squad and Super and any other movie he's ever made. It's really, really silly to say it's just a generic Marvel film. That's just not true. The Suicide Squad is not like the Guardians movies. It's not like any other superhero movie I've ever seen. It's very different. It's somehow super uplifting and optimistic despite being so encrusted in dark comedy. And it somehow is, it's one of the most awesome superhero movies I've seen in a long time, but I would say I like Guardians 1 and 2 more still. And the thing about the Guardians 1 and 2 movies is that they're basically just these really cool sci-fi adventures that have barely fuck all to do with superheroes. It's basically, it's really more of just like a sci-fi movie, like our generation's Star Wars, really more so than it is a comic book movie or superhero movie. It's cool that it's connected with the Marvel stuff. It's cool that these characters show up in Avengers, right? But in reality, it's kind of doing its own thing, and I really love that. I love that it's barely even connected with the Marvel stuff, honestly. And I can tell people to go watch it and not worry about the other. Like, if you guys don't watch Marvel movies, then you don't have to. You can just watch Guardians 1 and 2, and they're doing their own thing. Now, if you want to watch Infinity War, you might enjoy the Guardians' involvement in that movie. But James Gunn, I think Guardians 3 is going to be the last one, and Batista already said that he's done with Drax after this third movie, and it would make a lot of sense if James Gunn stepped away from the Guardians series now that he really should just step away from Marvel altogether, because it would be a little weird if he had his hands in both, right? He should probably just focus on one. And it seems like he's going to do Guardians 3, make Marvel and Disney a shit ton of money, and then bail. And so DC and Warner Brothers, they've been watching James Gunn just make a bunch of money. And the way they cut the original Suicide Squad movie, the Ayer directed movie, which he has said that the studio butchered his movie. And then you can tell, I believe him, the studio must have butchered the movie because the movie is just fucked up beyond belief. The original trailer was Bohemian Rhapsody, and it kind of gave people this like happy-go-lucky fun vibe similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy. So it was almost like Warner Brothers. So this is me not shaming Zack Snyder. This is me agreeing with a lot of Zack Snyder fanboys that the way Warner Brothers handled these movies, Batman vs. Superman and Justice League and Suicide Squad, was atrociously bad. The way Warner Brothers handled these movies was terrible. But it seemed like they wanted to get Joss Whedon to do Justice League because Joss Whedon did Avengers, and they wanted to get James Gunn to do Suicide Squad because James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy. And it seemed like they were trying to capture those two movies specifically. And they did. They got Joss Whedon to take over Justice League when it was halfway done. Actually, I think it was mostly finished by Zack Snyder. They changed a lot of stuff to the point where I was like, when people are talking about the Snyder Cut, I was one of those people saying the Snyder Cut would take all this time to finish. There's no way it's basically done, right? And it turns out it was pretty much basically done. It turns out it was basically done, and Warner Brothers just decided to ruin everything, and now Snyder fans and non-Snyder fans alike pretty much all came together and said this movie rocks, because that's the thing. One of my favorite superhero movies growing up was Watchmen, which is directed by Zack Snyder. And I liked it so much that if Zack Snyder directed anything, I would pretty much just go watch it. I've watched like all sorts of... He made like these random movies that didn't even do that well, and I watched them too. I just liked Zack Snyder after Watchmen. I thought it was really good, which made me excited for his take of Superman for Man of Steel. I thought it was going to be like a very brutal Superman movie. I was kind of let down by the fight scenes in that one, but the fight scenes in Batman vs. Superman brought me back in. But the problem is with Batman vs. Superman is that the rest of the movie was just kind of a miss. The fight scene between Batman and Superman was amazing, and the fight scene that Batman had with those thugs was amazing. But the rest of the movie, the story and the pacing, the line delivery, it seems like I think Zack Snyder is a better director when he's adapting something, because he adapts very closely and focuses on making really, really cool visuals. I think, for example, if they just did a movie... I think instead of doing Batman vs. Superman, if Snyder just literally made Dark Knight Returns the live-action adaptation, I think if he just literally made that one movie, that movie would have been fucking, like, bomb. I think that movie would have been amazing. I think that movie would have changed everyone's tune, and people would be praising Zack Snyder. But that's just not what we got. What we got was this weird hodgepodge of Batman is basically from that universe, but Superman is a very different kind of Superman, and he's like this own Zack Snyder creation. And the end result is people kind of walked out of it saying, well, I liked Wonder Woman, which is like when you have a movie called Batman vs. Superman and people are like, well, I didn't like it that much, but Wonder Woman was cool. I feel like that's not the goal. I feel like that's not what you should be doing, because if Batman's involved with something, he should be the best and coolest character, hands down. Like, people you should be thinking Batman's the best character ever. That's just how it always works, right? But when people only like Wonder Woman because she seemed somewhat normal and decent, but Superman and Batman were way off and whack, not to mention Lex Luthor was whack, then people are just kind of like, well, I don't know what to say about that. So here we are with the James Gunn movies, and I want to get into this before I waste too much more time talking about all this other shit. James Gunn is announcing all these movies now. And what I love about it is I'm a big fan of The Batman. I think The Batman is my favorite Batman movie, and I think it's my favorite version of Batman, at least when it comes to live-action movies. I still prefer the animated cartoon Batman, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy, as well as the Arkham Asylum-style Batman games. I really like those versions of Batman, and a big reason why the Arkham games feel so good for Batman is because one like the main writers I think was a part of the games. The guy who did the animated shows was a part of the games, so he wrote the games, which is why everything felt so good. I really enjoyed those games. And the thing is about those games was after I played those games, I started reading a ton of Batman comics. I read Long Halloween, I read Killing Joke, I read Dark Knight Returns, and I read more as well, but I kind of read smaller I didn't read nothing but the big stuff. I read some smaller stuff too. And people think when I tell them oh, this game's amazing, you got to play Batman Arkham City, they get kind of like, okay, well, you're a huge Batman fan, you're a giant Batman stan, you always post about how cool Batman is. And I'm like, well, I didn't until I played the game. The game made me like him. And so what I love about The Batman is that it seems like it takes a lot of inspiration. A lot of people have pointed this out. I'm not the first to say this. but it takes a lot of inspiration from The Long Halloween, which I said after walking out of the theaters that it reminded me of Long Halloween. And then I watched a lot of interviews where Matt Reeves is saying, I read The Long Halloween and then I wrote this. Like, yes, everyone knows it's very inspired by Long Halloween. Well, Long Halloween's a fucking fantastic comic. It was my favorite Batman comic already. Like, it was literally my favorite one. So what's the issue? Like, that's awesome. But it also seemed like when it came to the visuals, it seemed like Matt Reeves played the Arkham games and was like, oh, I should put stuff from that in here. Because so for the people who want like people always want like video game adaptations to be good. I think The Batman is a very good video game adaptation of the Arkham games. I think that the armor looks a lot like Arkham Origins. I don't think that's a mistake. Stuff like the Penguin's iceberg lounge is in the movie. I think all that's on purpose. I think it's because of the Arkham games. And to me, it's like, I'm so tired of people pretending that movies are so much better than video games and that video games are nothing compared to movies. Most movies today suck, Most movies aren't that good. The best movies are usually the weird independent films and like the weird like random films, like a lot, like The Menu. It's not an independent film, but it's like a random like film that has nothing to do with superheroes or big action scenes or anything. It's just like this random little cute film. I also really liked Everything Everywhere at Once. That movie was really good last year too. And but like those movies, those are big budget movies, but they're not like trying to build a big franchise or a series. They're just these really good independent, they're really good just like one shoot movies, just little movies that are cool. And I've been enjoying those kind of movies again. Knives Out and Glass Onion I really enjoyed too. And I'm happy that I'm actually watching movies and liking them, and I'm not just watching Marvel movies and Star Wars movies. I'm kind of glad that Star Wars is not making movies anymore, and Marvel's outside of... After Endgame, Marvel kind of died down. Yes, there's a shit ton of movies, but besides Spider-Man, they've all been kind of whatever. I've only really liked the Spider-Man ones. And The Batman was just a fantastic movie that I loved every second of. I just enjoyed I've watched it 4 times now. I just really like that movie. The tone, the visuals, everything about it. Especially love Robert Pattinson's performance. Yeah, just very happy in general. But so we're getting The Batman 2 in October 2025, but we're getting Superman Legacy in July that same year, and sometime that year we're getting The Lanterns show, which will be Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. And I've been really wanting 2 things. I've been wanting Hal Jordan to be redone and done better than the Ryan Reynolds version. The thing is that Ryan Reynolds version could have worked if they made a sequel, but they bailed on it so fast. I think the first movie, people act like it's like the worst thing ever. It's not the worst thing ever. It's all right, but it's just so middle of the road and lackluster and boring. It's generic. It's nothing special. But some of those early Marvel movies were also nothing special. It's just like they could have made Green Lantern work and they made sequels for it. And it sucks that Green Lantern kind of got shafted. It's like, when were we going to get Green Lantern sequels and or Green Lantern movies? And I think one of the coolest parts about the Snyder version of Justice League was when there was a Green Lantern ring and Thanos tried to snatch it, but it flew away. I think that was really cool. Like, I want Green Lantern stuff in the mainline movies, especially because Green Lantern can have so much to do. I mean, Green Lantern is so important to the DC universe outside of planet Earth. And there's just so much you can do there. Not to mention there's amazing villains, not just Sinestro and Atrocitus or whatever, the Red Lantern. But there's also, I really want to see Parallax. Like, Parallax was in the first Green Lantern movie, but I want to see Parallax, I want to see Hal Jordan be possessed by Parallax and have, the 10 Green Lantern rings, or, have, all those rings on all of his fingers and just go mad with power. That would be amazing. I would love to see Hal Jordan Parallax. And they actually have the means to do this because they've also introduced... They're going to do Jon Stewart at the same time. Now, the promo pictures I'm seeing show what I think is supposed to be Jon Stewart with a yellow lantern ring. And I think hopefully I'm just wrong. Hopefully, because I think Jon Stewart's... I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I would really like. I just like the idea that they're doing live action Jon Stewart, which everyone is saying they want. The main reason I want live action Jon Stewart is, well, there's two, because one, he was in the Justice League cartoon, and that show is goated, right? And I think we can all agree that no one hates that show. But also, if we have both of them, then we can make Hal Jordan turn into Parallax and have Jon Stewart fight back. And maybe Parallax is too powerful, so they need the whole Justice League involved. Now, my pie in the sky idea is to one day see Batman wearing the Yellow Lantern ring in a movie, which can only happen if Batman shares a universe with the Justice League and the Green Lantern. This idea may never happen. This idea may never happen. But I'm fine with it never happening. It's just that I think it'd be really cool if, like, just for like one movie, Batman wears the ring, which we see Batman wear the ring sometimes in the comics and cartoons. And I think these movies need to go to that level. I think some people might be saying, oh, this is just the same thing as Captain America using the hammer, using Thor's hammer. You could say it's like that, but for me, I've had this idea for longer than that. I've always loved whenever Batman gets the Green Lantern ring or Yellow Lantern ring. The White Lantern ring stuff was whatever. I didn't really care about that, but I just want that. I just want to see that someday, but that's my personal dream. If it never happens, it never happens. But I think it's one of those ideas that's really good that people know about vaguely, but the general masses don't really know about that idea, that Batman can even use the rings. We also know that Dick Grayson was almost chosen to be the Green Lantern after Hal Jordan, but someone else was like a better candidate. But yeah. So yeah, we're getting Superman, Green Lantern, and Batman 2, which is really awesome. And I think, as I said, I'm a giant fan of the Batman. I'm a giant fan of James Gunn, and he's doing the Superman movie, so I have a feeling I'm going to like it. I haven't seen a movie or played a game like Lollipop Chainsaw where I didn't think James Gunn was amazing at his job. Like, everything he does turns to gold, in my opinion. Again, I'm not here to be like, oh, Zack Snyder sucks. It's just that I just really like James Gunn. And I hate seeing all the James Gunn hate when it's like, well, clearly this man's reputation precedes him. Like, he's been doing amazing work in the field forever. But what's also really exciting is their direction they're taking with their Batman. So there's going to be 2 Batman movies. Now, Spider-Man has Spider-Man, like in the Marvel movies. There's Venom in the Venomverse, which includes like Morbius and stuff. And then there's the animated Spider-Man movies. Now, it's pretty easy to keep track of animated Spider-Man, right? Then a movie that's specifically about a Spider-Man villain, which is Venom. And then the Spider-Man that's a part of the Marvel universe. It's pretty easy to keep them all separated and know they're not all in the same thing. Venom doesn't mention Spider-Man at all whatsoever, so that's really easy to keep track of. And the animated stuff is, it's fucking cartoon. So, of course, it's not the same as the Marvel stuff. So it will be a little bit different from Spider-Man having 3 Batman movies. And that's because I'm including Joker. We'll have Joker, we'll have The Batman, and we'll have Batman Brave and the Bold. So what I'm thinking here is, the thing is, some people really want just to see Robert Pattinson Batman interact with Superman and stuff. I love Robert Pattinson Batman. That will probably always be my favorite Batman. And I don't know, this new Batman could be better. But the thing is about Robert Pattinson Batman is I don't want him to interact with aliens, right? What makes that movie good is that it's very grounded in reality. It's very human. It's very, like, trying to be realistic. It's very gritty and dark and brooding. And I think that version of Batman, once you introduce Superman, it just kind of changes the entire feel of the entire process, right? So if Batman meets Superman, it's not really about that stuff anymore. What I liked about the DC cartoons, what they did was Batman was the first cartoon, and that was because it was made after the success of the 1989 Tim Burton directed Michael Keaton Batman movie. And so the Batman cartoon was so successful that they launched a Superman cartoon. But basically, the Batman cartoon was like, there was no aliens, there was no supernatural stuff. There were characters like Clayface and Killer Croc and things like that. but there wasn't like aliens and superhuman strength stuff like that. And Superman, when Superman show was created, then it was canon with the Batman show, and the Superman show slowly started to introduce more alien stuff, and eventually started introducing Darkseid and stuff like that, and that's all canon with Batman. But Batman was the first superhero in that universe. It wasn't Actually, I think there was whatever. Either way, Superman was after Batman in that universe. And then eventually, when I got to the Justice League, in the Justice League cartoon, Batman and Superman already knew each other because it's all canon with those other cartoon shows. So I really like that approach. But that would only work if we did all three the Batman movies, and then never did a solo Batman movie ever again, unless you want to make Batman 4 have a very different feel from the first three Batman movies. So you can't do Superman 1 until the Batman 3 is out. That would be the only way to really replicate it the same way. And I think what would be a better idea, because the Batman is a very young Batman, instead of making Robert Pattinson do 25 movies, I think a better idea is to do what they're actually doing, which is introduce a very different type of Batman. Batman is a very good character because he's very versatile. He can fulfill lots of different roles. So these Batman movies are about young Bruce Wayne becoming Batman for the first time. It's year 2 in the Batman, and he's on his journey, right? It seems like with this Batman Brave and the Bold movie, because it's going to feature Damian Wayne Robin, they could take this in the direction that he's the first Robin. I don't think that's what they're going to do, because if they establish that Batman trained a previous Robin, at least Dick Grayson, then we can use Nightwing. And we can say, here's Nightwing. He was also trained by Batman, just like Robin. And he was the original Robin. And then we can introduce Teen Titans. Then we can introduce the Teen Titans and say, well, what's Nightwing doing now? Well, you could have Nightwing doing his own solo stuff, make a whole Nightwing solo movie, or you could just make Nightwing straight up a part of Teen Titans. And what would be really fun is if Nightwing is doing his own thing while Batman and Damian Wayne Robin are doing their own thing. And then in Justice League 1 or Justice League 2, for the first time after like a few years, have Batman and Nightwing on screen together, and you get to see their interactions, and you can see if they're on good terms or if they hate each other. Maybe they hate each other, but by the end of the movie, they're on good terms again. Basically, by saving Nightwing and having all this lore and build up around Nightwing, you have a lot of good material to work with for writing. You have a lot of good material here. And so I really like this idea. I really like... What I would have done if I did it was I would have made the movie like Batman meeting Dick Grayson for the first time, and eventually we would see that Robin turn into Nightwing and leave Batman, right? Not in one movie, in the course of several movies, right? In the course of several movies, including Justice League and everything. But I like their idea here a lot, because it basically means we get to cut out the middleman and go straight to having Nightwing right off the bat. We can have Damian Wayne Robin. We get and we get to have more content, basically. And because of this, that means they could possibly do Teen Titans a lot earlier, right? And so that could be a lot of fun, having the Teen Titans movie. Because if they do a good live-action Teen Titans movie... First of all, the only Teen Titans thing we've gotten so far is Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans, to me, has the power to rival... I feel like people like Teen Titans more than they like things like The Flash and Aquaman and stuff. Teen Titans is so popular and so beloved. And it really goes to show it's confusing why they think people don't want to see Robin, considering how popular Teen Titans is. Everyone knows who Robin is. Everyone likes Robin. Robin, to me, is just as important as The Flash and Green Lantern. And in fact, when you watch the old Super Friends cartoon... If you watch the old Super Friends cartoon, you see it's Batman and Robin, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. There's no Flash. There's no Green Lantern. That's how important Robin is. That's how important Robin is. Robin is one of the biggest DC characters. Do not discredit him. Put some fucking respect on Robin's name. And so I like this idea that it's going to be Batman with Damian Wayne Robin, and and we're going to get Nightwing at the same time. That's all I wanted. I've been wanting live action Robin, and it's really cool to see in Batman vs Superman. It's cool to see the suit. It's cool to see the Robin suit. But it's sad to know that we'll never see Robin in those series. Like if Snyder got to keep going, he had no intention of ever doing Robin, and Dick Grayson is dead in this universe. There's a tombstone that says, "Here lies Dick Grayson," or something like that. So for those of you who thought that was Jason Todd's Robin suit, the thing is, everyone who sees that Robin suit, they're like, "Oh, I want to know more about Robin. I want to know about that. I want to know more about that Robin." No, all that stuff happens off screen. We'll never get to see. We would have never gotten a Robin. And to me, it's such a missed opportunity when Marvel is doing War Machine, they're doing Winter Soldier and Falcon, they're doing Wong is very popular. It's like all these side characters get so much screen time in the Marvel movies, and it's like, okay, what about Robin? You know, Robin is big enough. Dick Grayson literally is Batman's sidekick, leaves Batman, becomes Nightwing, becomes the leader of the Teen Titans, dates Starfire. He is so interesting in his own right. He is seriously more interesting than the majority of the Justice League members. Like, you've got to do him. You've got to do Nightwing. You've got to do Nightwing. You've got to do Robin. So now that we're getting Damian Wayne Robin, I am ecstatic. I am very happy. It's exactly what I wanted. It's not exactly what I wanted. I wanted Dick Grayson and Batman, but it doesn't matter because we're going to get Dick Grayson Nightwing either way. So it's not exactly what I wanted, but it's pretty fucking close. I've been wanting live action Robin. Thing is, I never would have believed that they would go straight to Damian Wayne. But you know what? Damian Wayne as a character has been around for like over 10 years now, right? Like, he's been around fucking a long time. So it's about time he gets to be on the big screen, especially if we're doing stuff like Captain Marvel and in Miss Marvel, who are very relatively new characters. If we're doing these new characters and like America Chavez and stuff like that, if Marvel's doing all these new characters, why not just do Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and Damian Wayne Robin? Like, why not just do Damian Wayne Robin? You know, people know who he is. People know exactly who he is, and people are excited to see him. I think that's something that James Gunn is tapping into. I think he's sticking to a lot of newer stuff. There's also going to be a Supergirl movie, which is something that I would not have thought of right away either. I feel like Supergirl would have been later on, but it seems like James Gunn is really embracing these spin-off characters a lot. And so the Supergirl movie is based off of a very modern comic book. And I think James Gunn's tapping into doing modern DC on the big screen. He's very smart to do this. He's very smart. This man knows what he's doing. He's also trying to introduce a ton of never before heard of characters, and I think it's because he's responsible for Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad. It seems like he just loves the weird, obscure characters. And that's fine. You can do all that as long as you also make sure we get the mainline DC characters going. So with the Flash, he didn't announce anything for Flash or Wonder Woman. We'll have to see. And also Aquaman 2 is Aquaman 2 with Jason Momoa still. And Aquaman 2 comes out after Flash. So does Blue Beetle. So Blue Beetle and Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 are going to be after Flashpoint, meaning everything will be reset after Flashpoint. The Flash movie, he said the Flash movie resets the timeline and resets the DCU. So it's very new and different and weird. However, I'm very curious to see what they do here. Now, I've not seen Aquaman 1, but I've heard it's actually pretty good, and a lot of people really like Aquaman 1. And it did very well financially. And I think Jason Momoa deserves it. He worked hard. He earned that role. He earned that fame and fortune. If he gets people to become giant Aquaman fans, then he fucking deserves it, you know? And so people are happy with him. People like his version of Aquaman. People like the first Aquaman movie. So I think he deserves to stay as Aquaman and do Aquaman 2. So it's interesting because so we know we're going to have Shazam, Blue Beetle, Aquaman. We don't know how the Flash is going to work until the movie comes out. I think they're probably not going to keep Ezra Miller I think after Flashpoint he might be done, but that's just my guess. I could be wrong. I do want to see Wonder Woman is a very important character to me. I don't want to see her go. I don't care if it's Gal Gadot or not, though. Honestly, I don't think Gal Gadot is that great of an actress, but I know a lot of people really like her version of Wonder Woman. I just don't. I don't care either way. I just want to see Wonder Woman. As long as we get Wonder Woman, I'm fine. I just want Wonder Woman, right? I'll accept Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. I don't hate her, but I think there's potential for a better Wonder Woman out there. But I'm totally fine either way. And yeah, besides that, we're getting Superman, we're getting Batman. We'll have Blue Beetle and Aquaman and possibly Flash. We'll have Green Lanterns. So, and we'll have Supergirl. So there's the potential for a team is there, and it could be pretty good, but it's not quite the traditional Justice League team that I would prefer. But it seems like it's going to be years before we get the first Justice League movie, right? It seems like most of 2020, like because you know we're not even getting Superman until 2025. So it seems like for most of 2020, it's going to be no Justice League movie. They're really going to build this up. And I know some people are like, oh, so just ripping off Marvel now, because Marvel did all the movies and they did Avengers. Yes, but Batman vs. Superman, a lot of character development happens in between Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. A lot of things are unexplained, not shown to the viewers. And to me, it hurts the movie. It's not about copying Marvel. It's about doing a really cool idea and executing it perfectly, right? So Marvel did a lot of things right. However, I don't think the Marvel movies are that like amazing. I don't think they're like the best things ever. But you have to admit, by doing all these movies and setting everything up, things are a lot better, right? I don't know the deal between Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder. I don't know if Warner Brothers was pressuring him to make Batman vs. Superman right away and go straight to Justice League as fast as possible. It's very possible that that was all Snyder's idea, but it's also possible that Zack Snyder would have wanted to do more movies setting everything up. And now we do know that they wanted to do a Batman standalone movie, and they wanted the villain to be Deathstroke, which I think is a fantastic idea, because Deathstroke is a villain for all of DC, not just for Batman. But Batman is a great character to fight Deathstroke because they're both like really good fighters, right? And they're both also very smart at what they do. So Batman versus Deathstroke is a very good idea for your first standalone Batman film that takes place in a shared universe. So I think that would have been really smart. And with Ben Affleck directing it and Ben Affleck starring as Batman, even if I didn't really love his Batman, and I know a lot of people love his Batman, a movie like that could have made me love his Batman. Like when I hear that idea on paper, and you say Ben Affleck and you say he's directing it and it's going to have Slade, to me, I'm sitting here thinking, yes, sign me up. I will go watch that in theaters, right? I could have walked out of that movie being a very fucking happy customer. And I will say that when, like I said, in Batman vs. Superman, I didn't really like that movie, but the scenes where Batman is beating people up, and even including Superman, those are good scenes. The fight scenes with Zack Snyder and Ben Affleck with that Batman are good. And so if we have some good writing, if we have some really tense drama, and we have this whole like, who's the smarter guy, who's the better fighter, who's the better, whatever, against Batman and Deathstroke, that could have been a really cool movie. That could have been a really damn cool movie. And having it take place when Superman is dead would make a lot of sense. So we didn't get that movie, and that's a bummer. That's a real fucking bummer. We didn't get that movie, and we should have. Instead, we got The Batman. So, and I think other movies got canceled too. Like I think I heard there was a movie called Lantern Corps that was going to be about Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan together, similar to this TV show. And it's one of those things where it's like, damn, I wish that I wish they made that. Well, now we are getting it. We're getting in a show, and sometimes shows are better than movies. I think a great example of that is the Mandalorian show is much better than all the Star Wars movies that Disney's made. And a big part of why that show's so good is because instead of having these big dumb action scenes, just Boba Fett had one, but instead of having these giant, large scale action scenes that are kind of boring, just CGI fest everywhere. Mandalorian season 1 has lots of slower paced, very interesting episodes that are like really fun to watch. Like my favorite episode is the one where they do like a break-in where they go to like a spaceship and Mandalorian is like choking people out one by one while they're trying to like do this break-in to save to basically like free a prisoner, right? And then later on, Mandalorian and Bill Burr's character in season 2 do this whole infiltration thing where they're going inside the Empire. And those episodes, all the episodes of Bill Burr, when Bill Burr's in an episode of Mandalorian, you know it's going to be fire. You know it's going to be fucking fire. Those are so good. He's such a good actor. And it just makes you so happy to see. I can't believe Bill Burr is even in fucking Star Wars. Apparently he's not even a Star Wars fan. He's just in it because the creators like him. But god damn, it's so good. And it's like, if we get that kind of quality with Green Lantern, I'll be very happy. Some of those Marvel shows are kind of hit or miss. A lot of people don't seem to like them that much anyway. But people seem to like WandaVision a lot, and people like Loki a lot. I actually did like She-Hulk. I'm not here to discuss politics or whatever. I don't care about the politics. I just liked the show. I thought it worked. I thought it was very accurate to the comics, and it worked. But so if you guys don't like She-Hulk, I don't care. Like really, I just don't care. Because like I said, I don't care about the politics. It is what it is. But if the show works and it's funny, then it makes sense for the characters, I think it's good. So I liked when she would break the fourth wall. I liked all that stuff because that's what she did in the comics. I mean, there's panels of her ripping the comic panels up and shit like that, and talking about how she's dressed and all that. All that stuff is very accurate to the comics. So to me, I'm like, well, that should be in the show because it was in the comic. So if you don't like She-Hulk, you just don't watch it. But I'm not a baby, and I can just watch something and take it for what it is, even if I disagree with some of the politics in it. I can just watch it either way. For example, Zack Snyder puts his politics in movies like Watchmen and 300, and even Man of Steel has his personal politics. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's fine, but he did put his own politics in those movies. It's kind of subtle, though. It doesn't ruin the movies, right? That's the thing. I can judge those movies outside of the politics, so I don't care. But my point is that a lot of those Marvel shows are hit or miss, right? So it might not be good. However, Peacemaker was better than most Marvel shows. Peacemaker, which was the James Gunn show, with starring John Cena, was my favorite thing when it came out. Like right when the first episode came out, I was like, I like this. This is my kind of show. It's got my kind of humor. I will say some of the talking and dialogue is a little bit ridiculous, but you do have to fill out a lot more time when you're doing a show versus a movie. But I love the characters. I think Vigilante is one of the coolest side characters I've seen in one of these shows. I love that guy. I loved the character. I loved Peacemaker's dad. I forgot the character's name, but Peacemaker's dad was really awesome. I love the relationship they tried to develop between them. I love that John Cena's character Peacemaker has a pet bald eagle. There's just so many great things. Also, they still were using like alien stuff in it because this is still the same universe as Suicide Squad, so there was still like alien stuff in it. I loved all of that stuff. James Gunn's wife is in the show. She's really good. She's a great actress too. I really like her. So I'm totally down with more of everything of that. So if the Green Lantern show, I don't want it to be like quippy and funny and silly, but I do like that there's a lot of R-rated stuff on the DC side of things. It seems like Marvel isn't making things R-rated. DC is perfectly fine with making things R-rated. And so, but I don't want R-rated Green Lantern, right? I don't want any of that. But if they do a good job with this, and they keep it with the outer space stuff, it seems like they're doing a lot of outer space stuff in DC already, especially with what James Gunn's been announcing. the Green Lantern Corps could be like really important for all that, and I think Green Lantern show could be really good. So it could be better than having just one movie, having multiple seasons of a great show about these awesome characters that people don't know that much about. There's a lot of stuff with Green Lantern. There's a lot of stuff in the DC universe, and the Green Lantern show could go over stuff that's not even Green Lantern related if we're just talking about things from other planets that have nothing to do with Earth. So there's a lot they can cover with the Green Lantern show, and having both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, it could be better than just having a fucking movie, right? So to me, the top three things I'm very excited for are Green Lantern is third place, Superman in second place, and then Batman and Damian Wayne Robin for Batman Brave and the Bold in first place. Lastly, I will say James Gunn is doing something else that I saw some people say they don't like this. In my opinion, I like the idea of this. If it's executed poorly, we'll see, but I like the idea of it. Basically, in the Star Wars shows, characters from Clone Wars and Rebels started appearing in Mandalorian, and it was really hype every time. When we got to see live action Cad Bane, we got to see live action Ahsoka. Every time we see these things happen, I love it. Now, sometimes their appearances are kind of lame. Sometimes it's not as well done as I wish. I kind of think Cad Bane died and went out like a bitch, and I don't like that. I think he should have been cooler, and I think he should just not have died at all. But what I will say is I like this idea that characters from video games and TV shows could appear in movies. So, for example, in the CW shows, a lot of people really like that version of Supergirl, Flash, and Green Arrow, and you get invested in those characters, and they'll never be in the main DC movies. They'll only ever cross over with their other shows. And that's something that we don't like. What I like about the Marvel TV shows, we haven't seen any characters from the TV shows cross over to the movies yet. At least I don't think. I might be wrong. But characters from the movies often appear in the TV shows, right? And in fact, Captain America 4, the movie, is going to basically be about Falcon and Winter Soldier. So the movie Captain America 4 will be pretty much a direct sequel to the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show. So that's kind of cool. And I did watch Falcon and Winter Soldier and I liked it. So that's cool. So what I want is I want more of that. I want stuff like that. So the Green Lantern show is probably going to be really dope, and eventually those Green Lantern characters will be in the DC movies. They'll probably be in the Justice League movie or something, and that'll be really fun. But also, the cartoons, which is what I was bringing up, characters like Ahsoka and Cad Bane appeared in the Clone Wars show, and then ended up in the Mandalorian and Boba Fett shows. They seem like they're going to do stuff like that. They seem like they're going to do stuff like having characters from the cartoon show eventually appear in live action form. That is exciting. That is really cool and well done. That is one of the coolest things they announced. Now, the examples they gave were just whatever. They were basically talking about making a cartoon show for a list of D-listers. Honestly, these guys are more like F-listers. I've never heard of these characters at all. But if we get to love them, and we get, it's cool to know that they'll eventually appear in other things, similar to how Star Wars does things. Also, Star Wars does something else similar, but people don't often talk about this, and that is they have video games that are canon with the mainline movies. So Battlefront 2 and Jedi Fallen Order are canon with the larger Star Wars universe, but so far they haven't affected anything. Now, what's interesting is that if they wanted to just take the actor for Jedi Fallen Order and put him in the real world, the video game character is heavily based on the actor's likeness. And he's the one doing the acting, and he's the one doing the voices. He's already playing this character. So if they want to put him in a TV show or a movie, it would actually work. It would actually work flawlessly. You could just take him from that movie, or take him from that video game, and put him in a movie. And James Gunn said, he said this earlier, but he reiterated it again, that they are going to make video games that are canon with the mainline movies. So I'm not saying a video game based on Superman Legacy. I'm saying they might make a Superman game in between Superman 2 or 3 that is canon with the Superman movies, right? That is really interesting. That is very cool. So what if, for example, we get like a Nightwing game, and then you can just, and then the adventure and the story and the character they fight, maybe they do a villain that they don't want to do. Like maybe they don't want to do Two-Face ever. Maybe they're like, no, we're not going to do Two-Face. So you could go ahead and make Two-Face the main villain of a game, and then have a Batman and Nightwing game or something where they fight Two-Face. Or even make a game where it's Batman and Dick Grayson as Robin before they break up, and you can make a story about them breaking up. And then whenever we see them in the movie, we're like, okay, we know what happened between them because it was explained in the game. That is really cool. That is a really smart idea. So he gave no examples. Those examples I just gave were made up in my head. He gave no examples of how they're going to handle this. But that is just an idea of what we could get. So I think that's really cool. I think that we could be getting games that tell original stories based off these characters, and then we can have that in our head and internalize that for the characters. And it'll help because they'll have the actual actors voicing the characters. So things that happen in the games. Also, imagine if they make a Justice League game. And it's like, okay, what if Justice League 2 comes out and then Justice League 3 comes out like 5 years later? So how about 2 years after Justice League 2, they make a Justice League game where you can play as all these different characters, and the events in this Justice League game are canon, so they don't have to keep doing these big budget movies, but we can still have more stories with the characters, right? So it's just, there's so many examples and ways to do it. And it's like thank God, it's probably because James Gunn actually worked on Lollipop Chainsaw. He's actually worked on games before, that he knows the importance of video games. He knows that the kind of people who go see these movies play video games. He knows people will be very happy. So I think this is smart. I think this is very smart. So I gotta give props to James Gunn for giving video games the due respect they deserve. Just like I gotta give props to Matt Reeves for respecting the Arkham series. It seems like Warner Brothers made a lot of bad decisions when Zack Snyder was in charge of things. A lot of things weren't Snyder's fault. A lot of the problems was just literally with Warner Brothers. It seems like the best and smartest choice they made was trying to find a Kevin Feige-like figure to take care of everything. And they just happened to pick James Gunn, who's an enormous comic book nerd, a superhero fan. James Gunn made superhero movies before he was working with Disney, okay? Just so you guys know. He was making superhero movies for a long time. He's always liked this stuff. So he's making these movies. They got him in charge, and which, to be fair, Zack Snyder was also a big comic book fan. So their head was always in the right place. But they just meddled too much with the Zack Snyder stuff. It seems like they're being more hands-off with James Gunn. So, now, if they cancel all the James Gunn stuff in the same fashion they cancel all the Zack Snyder stuff, that'll be fucking terrible. But I'm going to probably go see Superman Legacy in theaters, like, right off the bat, like, for the opening weekend. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to do good. And yeah, I think it might not do the best because some people might still be confused about the different Supermans and everything like that. But I'm very excited for it. So I'm going to go see it, and I hope everyone sees it and enjoys it. What matters more to me, because I don't care about being a consumer or just being like promoting all this shit, right? I just want good movies, I just really want good movies. So I think, and it's the thing, maybe Snyder's stuff gets good eventually, because I do like the Justice League movie he did. I don't think it should be 4 hours, but I'm not gonna say it was a bad movie. It was a perfectly good movie. It wasn't like terrible. It wasn't bad, but I think it was a little bit better than average. I think it was above average. I think it was a pretty good movie, but it was 4 hours. So I'll probably never watch it again for the rest of my life. Like, it really needs to be cut down. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I liked Man of Steel. I'm not going to sit here and say that I liked Batman vs Superman. I don't think those movies were good. I know a lot of people really like Man of Steel. I didn't like it. So I'm rooting for DC here. I want DC to have better movies than Marvel. I've always wanted DC to have better movies than Marvel, but DC just continuously made that very hard. And it wasn't just Snyder's fault. You know, they butchered Justice League. Warner Brothers butchered the first Suicide Squad movie. It's not just like the fault of a director or two, right? It's the fault of a lot of people who are sticking their hands where they shouldn't stick their hands. And I'm hoping that time is over. And James Gunn said he wants to make these movies that stick closely to the director's visions, and he wants these movies to all feel unique and different. So it seems like the whole point of this is not just to have a Justice League crossover movie, but to instead have a bunch of good movies. Because to me, I don't even fucking care about Avengers, right? I don't care about fucking Avengers, right? I liked Infinity War because the Guardians were in it. I don't care about the Avengers movies. I like the Spider-Man movies more than most of the Avengers movies. I like the Guardians movies most than the Avengers movies. I just want to see good movies. Now, if you make a good Avengers movie, it's a good Avengers movie. But if you make a good every movie, if all the movies are good, then you just get to keep going to the theaters and watching good movies. And that's what I want. I just want to watch good movies, man. So the fact we're still getting Joker 2, which is probably going to be good because Joker 1 was good. We're getting The Batman 2, probably going to be good because The Batman was good. And we're getting all these other movies. I'm hoping they're all good, man. I'm hoping they're all good. Anyway, this has been a 50-minute long video. I'm going to end this one here. I'm going to upload it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.